Some people still don't get it, but that's why I'm here to educate them.
If it wasn't for
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming back with another Aaliyah video, and this video is kind of spontaneous, and basically this is just an update on different things I see with Aaliyah's legacy and different misconceptions I've seen over the past few days. Because sometimes I let stuff go under the rug. I'm just like, okay, whatever, it is what it is. But when when I get different signs that I need to do a video to address certain things, y'all know what I do. I hop on this camera and I record, and this is one of those videos. And this video is going to be about the miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy. So at this point, I already know everybody has their own preferences. This is not a video to convince people that Aaliyah was the greatest singer of all time. Aaliyah was the best dancer, the best artist of the 90s, the best R&B singer of all time. This is no way and no means that type of video, right? But because look, there's some people, Michael Jackson, known as the most famous, most greatest, most iconic entertainer of all time. There's some people that are not fans of him. As rare as that is, there's some people that's not fans of Michael Jackson. So I'm not trying to throw Aaliyah on people like, oh my God, you can't see her greatness. This is not that type of video. Every time the conversation about Aaliyah's legacy comes up, it's always the same things, but I want to address certain things I've seen over the last few days. Oh, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. But Aaliyah was iconic, and she still is. And here's what I'm gonna say, right? The greatest evidence of Aaliyah's impact is time itself. I'm filming this video right now in May of 2021. Aaliyah passed in August of 2001. This August makes 20 years, not 20 days, not 20 weeks, 20 years since Aaliyah's passed. And just to see her impact, her influence on today's artists and artists that came up after her, and even artists that were her peers at the time have even spoke about how she inspired them and she set the way, she set the path. Aaliyah was her own blueprint. You know how Janet Jackson is a blueprint? She was a blueprint. She still is a blueprint for artists that came after her. Aaliyah, just being herself, set her own trends. She created her own blueprint that you see today. Because people have this thing where it's like, oh, she wasn't a legend before she died. All of a sudden, like, death makes you a legend. Death makes her a legend. Nobody was calling Aaliyah a legend 2 days after she died, a day after she died, a year after she died. Like, oh my God, he was doing that. This is years after seeing her impact. Like, oh, it's been 5 years. And Aaliyah's still doing this. Aaliyah's still having impact. Aaliyah's still 10 years. Aaliyah's still doing this. Aaliyah's still 15 years, Aaliyah's still having impact. Aaliyah's still influencing. 20 years later, Aaliyah is still an inspiration. She's still influencing. She's still a blueprint. 20 years, that's impact. That's a legacy. That's a legend. Bottom line is, Aaliyah did not achieve all she did in her 22 years of life. And she didn't tragically pass the way she did, when she did, just to get downplayed 20 years later by some randoms on the internet. Just because, they feel some type of way about, oh, y'all doing too much, y'all give her too much, and oh, she gets compared to this one and that one, and y'all know what I'm talking about. I made videos about that, and I'm going to address 3 specific things and videos or events that happened over the past few days that really led to this video, really letting me know that there's such a miseducation about Aaliyah's legacy. There's so much that people don't know. And this is for the fans, for the people that watch me, for the fans that come across this video, y'all already know this. And y'all can agree with me, y'all can go down in the comments, voice your opinions on the matter. But this is for anybody, because a lot of Aaliyah haters love to click on her videos and leave comments, and yeah, I'm gonna get into that too. But this is for anybody that's like, this is just a discussion, because I feel like as it gets closer to Aaliyah's 20th anniversary, of her passing, the conversation of Aaliyah is going to come up more and more, and people are going to be like, oh, would she have did this? Would she have did that? How would she be today? Would she, that type of conversation is always coming up. And just seeing people's opinions and seeing how much passion people have to defend Aaliyah, but how much passion people have in downplaying Aaliyah is such a dynamic that is just like, wow. Just because Aaliyah was not your favorite type of singer, that doesn't mean that she deserves the disrespect that she gets. You know what I'm saying? Because even when I did that video about Aaliyah and Selena, which I did over a year ago, where I'm like, why don't they get the same respect? Somebody recently just commented and was like, oh, Aaliyah couldn't sing that well, that's why. And I'm like, okay, that's your opinion, that's your preference, whatever. You know, I don't know what type of y'all wanted to hear a 5-octave range on a song like Try Again? You wanted to hear Aaliyah hit operatic notes on a song like Rock the Boat? If that was your opinion, just because you thought Aaliyah wasn't your favorite type of singer, or she's not your favorite type of singer, that doesn't warrant the disrespect that she gets. It's outrageous at this point. Like, and I know it's like sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm gonna do this video and I'm gonna be done, but something always comes up where I'm like, you know, I think it's time for an update and for a new perspective on this discussion. So basically, if most of y'all don't know, over the past week, Aaliyah was trending on Twitter. And y'all know when Aaliyah randomly trends on Twitter, it's sometimes spontaneously it's like, it's not always for the best reasons. As many of y'all know, because I talked about it before. So I decided to click on it. And of course, I don't even know, this random account who has a lot of followers for some reason, he posed the question of the whole, would Beyonce be blah, 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 if Aaliyah was still alive? And it's just like, y'all know, I'm not even gonna get into that. I'm gonna make this real quick. And then, you know, but the thing is, people was chiming in and discussing that so much that Aaliyah's name started trending in the Twitter search bar, in the Twitter trending box. People was discussing it so much that she started trending. And you know, people say the run-of-the-mill things. Oh, y'all overhype her. She wasn't even that big. Destiny Child was out on her.
Oh my God.
But you know, another thing I noticed that people do is they look up Aaliyah's chart positions and her album sales, and they want to compare it to Destiny Child. And oh look, and even Brandy and Monica, and oh look, they had this many number ones. Aaliyah only had one. Oh, they sold this much. Aaliyah only sold that much. Oh, her first week she sold this much. Aaliyah only sold that much. And it's just like, I mean, you comparing Aaliyah's '90s debut to Beyonce's debut, when she came out in 2003, when people already knew who she was, compared to Aaliyah's when she came out in 1994, when nobody really knew who she was. I mean, make it make sense. You gotta make it fair, make it make sense. But off of that, right? Seeing her trending because of that, I was like, okay, here we go. But it was people defending Aaliyah, and I was like, all right. You know, people was going back and forth and da da da. But then this is where I realized the miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy and how because people are so quick to throw her chart positions and her album sales, she wasn't even the biggest seller. She wasn't even, she didn't even have that many number one hits. She didn't even have that many top tens. And I'm like, yeah, it's for a reason. Because her uncle and his label, Blackground, where she was on, didn't release her singles properly. And this goes into another video I recently seen on YouTube where it was like a video about Aaliyah's chart positions. I'm gonna put it up here for y'all. Where it was showing like all her chart positions and how far they go and how long they stayed on the chart. And, you know, from 1994 to 2003, you know, when her posthumous album came out. And then it was people in the comments like, oh, I'm surprised this song didn't go number one. I'm surprised this song didn't go number one. And then there was also people like, oh, look, y'all said Aaliyah was so big, but she didn't even have that many hits. And then I said, this goes into the miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy and of how her career was handled when she was alive and even after. And I'm just like, wow, many people don't realize, and most of y'all know this because we talk about it all the time, but just to reiterate, Aaliyah's label, her uncle, they held her back. They didn't release her singles properly, and they didn't release her singles in the best way to capitalize on its popularity, right? To the point where some of her songs wasn't even eligible to chart on the Hot 100. A lot of her songs from One in a Million, including One in a Million itself, wasn't even eligible to chart on the Hot 100 because of the way they promoted it and the way they released it as an airplay only single, as a promotional single. And Billboard's rules was different back then. So if your song or your single wasn't released in this specific type of way, it wasn't going to chart. No matter how much radio play it got, because let's be honest, Aaliyah's songs was just as popular as her peers, if not more popular. But because they weren't released the right way, that's why some of her chart positions didn't get the best lifespan. You know, instead of going to number one or going top five or going top 10, it would stop at 21 or 30 this or 40 this, or it wouldn't even be able to chart because Billboard had such strict rules on, okay, if only this type of single could chart, only that type of single could chart. In so many ways, I'm going to say it like this. If it wasn't for Jive Records, Atlanta Records, and Virgin Records being the distributor of her albums, her singles, and her songs, you know, on a wide scale, Aaliyah was almost treated like an independent artist. People don't really look into it to realize outside the fan base, Aaliyah's major hardcore fan base, people don't really look outside them because they just see like, oh, well, you know, they know her songs are popular, so they're like, oh, well, how didn't it go number one? How didn't it go top 10? Because of the way they were promoted, the way they were released. Ari That Somebody is the biggest example of how, if that was released properly, that could have easily went number one. That was played just as much as The Boy's Mine. But Clive Davis and Brandy's label, they were smart enough to know, okay, we got Brandy and Monica, it's a duet. We got the music video. They had the VMA performance. They made a big thing with that song. It got so much radio play that they really capitalized. They really took advantage of the popularity of that song. Then you had Are You That Somebody? That was just a soundtrack single from the Dr. Dolittle movie. It became such a monster hit, right? It was all over the radio. The video was huge. But what did they do to promote the song outside of that? Barry Hankinson, her label, her uncle, Blackground, they had her performing it at radio festivals and nightclubs. It's like, as big as that song was, you had Aaliyah performing at a nightclub.
And that pisses me off.
Compared to like a label with Destiny Child was on, especially as they got bigger, and with Matthew Knowles as the manager, where they milked every little success they could get, you know, where they saw a single getting popular, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. With Aaliyah, it was just like okay, we're gonna release it and just let it do what it do, and all right, okay, on to the next. Or Aaliyah took a break and then she did movies and then she, you know, try again. If it wasn't for the strong success of the radio play and Billboard changing its rules, Try Again wouldn't even went number one. You see what I'm saying? So people are so ignorant when it comes to that. I'm not talking about the fans. I'm talking about just people in general. When you just see people leaving opinions and, oh, she was even that big. Oh, she didn't even have that many hits. I'm like, and another thing is, a song doesn't have to go number one or top 10 or top 20 to be a hit. And then another thing I want to get into is, you know, it's a channel on YouTube called Honest, where he makes videos about different music artists in the music industry and different topics in the same way like I do. And then he recently made a video, I'm gonna link it up here, about, oh, does death overhype an artist? And most people was in defense of Aaliyah and Selena and Tupac and Biggie, you know, legends that die young. But before they died, they already had established careers. They already had popularity. They already had an established fan base. They already had mainstream success. But it was just that they didn't get to finish it. They didn't reach their peak. So that's why it's so questionable of how far would they have went, how big would they have been, you know? But then you had a lot of people in the comments trying to, and I seen this mostly with Aaliyah, where they were trying to be like, oh, well, Aaliyah was overrated. Oh, Aaliyah was overhyped. Oh, people going back and forth. It's like Selena, nobody was really saying nothing about her. Tupac and Biggie, nobody was really saying nothing about her. You know, people were saying stuff about certain rappers, but with Aaliyah, I seen that she was like a target for people to be like, well, Aaliyah was overrated. Oh, she did it. Then, you know, you had to be an Onsay debate, and we're not going to talk about that. But I seen that Aaliyah's always like, with those type of videos and topics, Aaliyah's always seen as like an easy target to be like, well, she was overhyped. She was overrated. Oh, she didn't get this much until death. The only thing Aaliyah achieved in death that she didn't achieve while she was alive was a #1 album that debuted at #2. And then here's another thing, for the miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy, and people love to say her album was doing bad until she died. Her album debuted at number 2. Alicia Keys debuted at number 1. You had Alicia Keys with her single "Fallen," which was pushing the album. Then you had Aaliyah with her single "We Need a Resolution," which was pushing the album to that point. At that point, no other Aaliyah singles was released. No "Rock the Boat," no "More Than a Woman." Only single pushing was "We Need a Resolution." And as dope as that song is, and people say they love the video, people say the song is dope, the song was not radio friendly. Compared to Alicia Keys' "Fallen," which was definitely radio friendly and had a big success in the music video, and it was a big song. I remember first hearing it and first getting into Alicia Keys, and my mother was really loving this. I remember. That's when she first came out, and she was big with that song. Compared to "We Need a Resolution," where it was one of those songs where it was just like some people liked it, some people didn't. It was a new direction, it was a new sound, it was a new playfulness, it was a new artistic direction Aaliyah was headed in. Especially, she took a risk releasing it as her first single, and it didn't really, chart-wise, it didn't pay off, but artistically it did. But, Aaliyah wasn't the type to chase after charts and sales anyway. That's a testament to her artistic integrity, right? But going back into what I was saying, you had Alicia Keys and "Fallen," you had Aaliyah and "We Need a Resolution." Which, both of the albums came out at that same time. Which one you think was going to debut at number 1? Which one you think was going to debut at number 2? Even though Aaliyah, she was already established, she was already a veteran. Alicia Keys was the new artist, but she had that big song, whereas Aaliyah had like a song that not that many people took to at first, and that the radio played for a while, and then it was just like, and it stopped midway in the charts. Of course, Alicia Keys is going to debut at number 1. And because "We Need a Resolution" was the only song pushing, even until Aaliyah's death, that's why the album sales decreased. Had Aaliyah stayed alive and had they released "Rock the Boat" and "More Than a Woman," or had they released "More Than a Woman" first, like I always say they should have, it would have been a whole nother story. Not saying that Aaliyah would have sold 1 million copies in a week, but it would have been more of a steady race. People don't really take the time to really do the research. They just they see the numbers, they see the chart positions, they want to compare it to this and that, and they be like, oh, well, she wasn't doing that good. She was doing good. It's just that her label didn't always promote and handle and push her singles and music the way they should have, to capitalize on the popularity, to capitalize, to create the best results, to create the best chart positions, to create the best success, to push the most sales. They did the best they could, or Barry Hankerson did the best he could do, but look at it like this. Barry Hankerson was not the best businessman. This is the same man that lost the rights and licensing to 75% of her music because of some bad business deal, whatever thing he signed, or he gave it away, and he didn't know how to upkeep with the label. How you think he was handling her music in the 90s, in the early 2000s? Y'all really think he was making the best decisions to be like, okay, how can we make this go number 1? How can we make this go top 10? Okay, in this market, in that market, in this country, in this demographic, how can we do it? Barry Hankerson was nobody's wise businessman. Okay? Now that we got that established, you can see how that all has an effect on Aaliyah's career. And the miseducation comes in where it's like people feel because Aaliyah was so popular, sometimes Aaliyah's singles and her songs and her videos was the push because the label really didn't do it like they should have. Her success was organic. It was natural. People got to realize that Aaliyah, even though she was just as popular, if not more popular, she wasn't always promoted the same way. She wasn't over promoted like most of her peers. Her popularity of her songs and her music and her albums was just that, its own popularity. The popularity of it is what pushed itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't no overexposure, no over this, no over that. it was its own popularity that pushed it. When you had her peers that was like boom, 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 and everywhere, and commercials and this and that and this and that, endorsement deals. Just Aaliyah was just, she just had the music that they released to the radio. If it wasn't for the radio played a huge impact in Aaliyah's sales and chart positions. How much of Aaliyah's songs played on the radio is what really pushed, because her label just wasn't doing it. And they just wasn't releasing them in the right way to really get the full effect. So in a nutshell, Aaliyah wasn't always given the best cards to deal with, but she made the best out of them. Aaliyah wasn't always given the juiciest lemon, but she squeezed all she could out of it, and she made the best lemonade possible with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what people got to realize about Aaliyah's career and how her legacy, how her legacy would be. The fact that Aaliyah had as much success as she had was a testament to her talent and her popularity, because she wasn't getting as pushed as most of her peers that did better than her. People don't realize that. You really look at the foundation of Aaliyah's label and how she was being promoted. The fact that she had that success was a success in itself. Okay? Also, another thing I wanted to address was that I found it real ironic. I found it real funny how a lot of people under that Honest video and under that Aaliyah chart positions video that was talking like trying to really downplay Aaliyah, talk about how overrated she was or overhyped she was. A few of those people I seen commenting under those videos, by this point, I recognize account names and account profile pictures and all that. Some of those accounts posting under those videos saying those negative things about Aaliyah be the same or were the same accounts that were always under my videos. I'm like, wow, I remember you used to comment under my video about Aaliyah saying this and that. Now you under this video talking negative about her? I'm like, I find that interesting. Aaliyah's career was heading for bigger things. Aaliyah was becoming a well-rounded entertainer, a well-rounded businesswoman, to the point where it wasn't going to be about, oh, Aaliyah debuted at number 1. Oh, she sold 600,000 in the first week. Oh, she got 5 Grammys in one night. It was going to be more than that. Beatles fan. I'm not a big Elvis Presley fan, right? But I would never go under an Elvis Presley video and be like, Elvis was so overrated. How did y'all like him? How did he get so much success? How did he sell so much? Michael Jackson was way better than Elvis. What's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes no sense for me to do that. But with Aaliyah, something about Aaliyah and her career and the discussions and the comparisons with the Beyonce and this one and that one and then Brandy and Monica, something about the state Aaliyah's legacy was left in, something about the way Aaliyah passed, when she passed, right at her peak, and the fact that she's frozen in time, you tie all that in, right? And then you add on, you sprinkle in how her label didn't really promote her singles the best, which led to sometimes not the best chart positions, not the biggest album sales. She always kind of felt like in the middle with that. That's where you have this dynamic where it's just like a miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy. Some people will always have that miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy. But I'm here, I did this video to address it, to educate people who don't know, because the real fans do, and just to really get the point out that, Aaliyah did what she could with what she was handed. She wasn't always given the best tools, but she made the best use out of them. And with that, with all the success she had, with what she achieved in 22 years, and how her legacy and influence and inspiration and her blueprint is still a huge factor 20 years after her passing. I mean, what else more do I have to say? How much else do we have to defend her legacy and this and that? Besides you thinking Aaliyah wasn't your favorite type of singer, like what else? Time is the biggest evidence that Aaliyah's legacy is strong, that Aaliyah had a legacy, that Aaliyah still has a legacy, that Aaliyah is now a legend. that Aaliyah is an icon, and that if you really look at it, and you see how everything was headed for her, she was only going to get bigger and better. And that's it. Why do y'all think there's such a miseducation of Aaliyah's legacy? Besides, her family and uncle not really doing nothing for like 14, 15 years. And do you think it's fixable? Do you think it can be fixed? In what ways do you think it could be fixed? I'm up for, how they did the Selena series? I'm up for an Aaliyah series on Netflix, or, Aaliyah this, Aaliyah that. But, would that fix it? In what ways do you think Aaliyah's legacy can really flourish? This August makes 20 years. So, like I said, we got to go hard for Aaliyah this year, But not only us, the fans, Aaliyah's estate, they have to go hard for her this year. And I've seen that they recently updated her AJ Nothing But a Number videos in HD on her main YouTube channel now. But it's just like, it's baby steps, toddler steps. But it's 20 years now. August is 20 years. There has to be a full force. It got to be an army. You know what I'm saying? Like, Aaliyah's legacy is strong, but it's almost like it's on a thin line, So let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. At the end of the day, people have to be wise enough and willing enough to do their own research. But there is a way for the mainstream to realize Aaliyah was that, and most people do, but I feel like it's still kind of shaky compared to where Selena, where people are like, oh, Selena, But with Aaliyah, it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like there are ways to fix that, but we all gotta work together, and Aaliyah's estate gotta work together with us to make that happen, to where we wouldn't be having these discussions and conversations and topics and debates when we're supposed to be celebrating her 20 years later and people trying to downplay her. That's just something I wanted to talk about. It's something I've seen over the past few days, and I was just like, I gotta come talk to my people about this, see where y'all heads at with this, because I know that, it might seem repetitive, but as the years go on, 20 years later now, new things come up, new perspectives come up. I just wanted to see what y'all think about it all. So anyways, guys, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.